Today, we're really happy to have with you and to be able to present to you one of our ambassadors, someone who's really worked closely with us on our software as well as other products that DxO produce, John Stanmeyer. John, of course, if you're here today, of course, you know who John Stanmeyer is, especially if you follow photojournalism. He's a regular contributor to National Geographic and Time magazine. He's also won different awards, including the World Press Photo Award. So I don't want to talk too much, but John is basically going to talk to you about DxO OpticsPro 11 and how he fits it into his workflow. So without further ado, I want to present to you John Stanmeyer.
Greetings from Yerevan, Armenia. I'm here in this lovely little apartment here in downtown Yerevan, and I'm thrilled so many of you have joined us. As DeMarcus has shared, I've been working with DxO and using DxO software for many years, actually many years, my goodness, since some of its early incarnation 10, 15 years ago. Also work quite extensively with the new one that connects to an iPhone and that really expands photography. But we're here about this wonderful bit of raw imaging software called OpticsPro. It is version 11, so I've just switched to my desktop. Again, I don't know what everybody's seeing, so I hope you're seeing this. I'm going to try to explain my workflow, even while on a National Geographic assignment, but I do want to share that when I am on an assignment, it's not about toning production in the field. That really happens in my studio back in the Berkshires of Western Massachusetts. But when I'm in the field, when I'm in hotels, I do tinker around at night or during the day or when I have downtime, because we as photographers like to see not what we're doing so much because we want to see it, but I like to see the narrative of the story moving along because I work on very long-term projects. So I will pop into to DxO OpticsPro and tone images periodically. But really what I'll show, and this is for demo purposes, I am on the road, I am in another country. I was hosting a workshop and doing some other work out here in the Caucasus. So I just will show you, normally I have a hard drive, a 2 to 4 terabyte hard drive connected. I'll show you my desktop, bear with me. It's very minimal right now, but there's a little tiny folder here. I'll move it around, see it under this tree. And I'm calling it here for intensive purposes because, again, I'm not carrying around nearly my normal million-image archive, which is on a 30-some terabyte RAID in my studio, but we call this DxO demo just for simplicity's sake. But I'll call it the assignment, whether it's the Out of Eden Walk or Volcano Gods or whatever the assignment is. And it doesn't have to be a National Geographic story. It can be any project I'm working on. And so I'll feed that, of course, every day into the computer, through the computer, into a hard drive. That stuff isn't rocket science. It's pretty straightforward stuff. But then I will come in, and I do know, and I'll tell you, I have been using DxO as a raw, I call these things dry darkroom tools, because I come from the wet darkroom world. Call it old school, I don't know, it's just whatever you want to call it, really. It's called photography, it's called communication. But really, I come from two worlds of film. I have a massive film archive, and of course, I have now a very large digital archive. And for years, I used Aperture, and it is going away. It is one of the most powerful data imaging software, not imaging, but organizing digital asset management tools out there. But I've been using OpticsPro in many incarnations as the raw imaging or the dry darkroom tool. And consider this really where we take our negatives and we put them in an enlarger and we print, right? The beauty of printing, the beauty of toning. And really that's what we do in photography. We just don't do it in a tactile nature anymore, so to speak, until we digitally print. But I still work and I think. And I hope you're seeing my desktop here now. All of these tools here that I'm slithering and sliding down through, these are tools that we kind of used to have in the wet darkroom, but boy, are they so much more powerful. I'm a reality-based photographer. I'm fascinated by the world around me, the enormous historicity that exists around all of us, and it's imperative to render it in its most truthful form. Keep in mind that lenses have inherent distortions to it, so in many ways they distort our world. I do not, I try to crop in camera. In fact, I almost always do, and I'll kick and scream in the magazine with deep love and respect to every magazine, including National Geographic. We don't want our images cropped, right? We compose and we see in the format that we're seeing. And you know, I just was hosting a workshop in Tbilisi, Georgia, working with a group of very amazing photographers, and I kept, you know, passionately sharing to everyone, no, you don't crop later. You see the world in the composition and the frame that you work in. And so I go into this dry darkroom tool, and we call it, for whatever reason, OpticsPro, and I think it's true. It's a professional optics imaging program. And so I'll dive into this. So we download the images, right, and it comes in, and we do captioning and keywording and things like that. But this is about processing the image to its highest quality possible. And I know there's a lot of tools out there. I get it. And I will be completely humanistic and blunt. Wait a second, I just got a message here from Santiago. Is DxO a replacement for Lightroom? Should it be? I'm going to tell you honestly, it's one of the most powerful raw imaging tools out there. I think it goes well above and beyond Lightroom. I have never been a Lightroom user. I've had to sort of kind of kick and scream into it periodically. It is pretty impressive also, but I'm not a scientist, I'm a photographer, I'm just a human being, but the people who make OpticsPro are scientists. These guys are geniuses. I'm just me. And what you're going to see here is how you can move your production, your photography, the thing that makes a living for what you believe in the most efficient manner possible. And I will tone in OpticsPro. And then, yes, because Aperture doesn't exist anymore and it's not going to be supported anymore, I will bring this into Lightroom for some minor things here and there. But most of the time, you're going to see here that the toning, Santiago, and speaking with you and everybody else, you'll see that by and large, we get pretty much done to a rendered image in the most precise, brilliant, realistic manner possible in photography today. So is it a replacement? I think it's your main tool. It's a compendium tool as well. You could use all sorts of other things, right? But I like to work in one place. I don't want to jump around in other tools. So I hope that kind of answered your question, Santiago. It also allows you not to have monthly payments on things. This is pretty much a one-stop dry darkroom enlarger, printing, toning apparatus, machine tool, whatever you want to call it. And if you're going to get into heavy manipulation, you're going to need things like Photoshop, right? And I really don't want to go there. I mean, Photoshop, to me, is well above and beyond what I ever need to do. I don't need vector graphics and stuff like that. If you need that, well, you're going to need those tools. So is it a replacement? I think it's the main tool you would use if you are subscribing to the Adobe Suite, because I think, I don't even really know, I think it sort of packages it. I only started using this. See, I have this little thing on the top of my thingy here. I've literally only started subscribing to the Adobe Suite because I had to, because of the lack of support from Aperture. But I always was using OpticsPro and other DxO software as plugins within Aperture, and just because they're so far superior than anything out there. So I hope that answers your question from a very simple human being perspective who just happens to be a photographer. Again, I'm not an over-manipulator of my images. I want to tone them, I put the negative in, and I want to print, and I want to bring out what was naturally there. So, so this was an image that from a National Geographic story called Bedlam in the Blood on global malaria. So there's this compare button up here. This is what it rendered, and this is what it presets out to. I use, they have this incredible science at DxO that analyzes every conceivable lens and camera, and so that is correcting what is in here, what the lens is distorting, and I don't want distortion. I want beautiful, natural imagery, what I saw. And I'll come in, and so it automatically corrected the white balance, but it probably is going to be as I photographed, and that's how I photographed it. I suppose we can come in here and sure we can change all of that, but I remember this wall. It was a little more turquoise than this. When you deal with reality photography, or really any photography in general, you have to go and humanize it the way you would see it. DxO has this thing called Smart Light. I usually start off with slight. You can do all sorts of things, medium, strong, oh my gosh, off the charts. You can go in, and what it does is that it adds light. It lightens things up, let it work its magic. There it is. DxO has this thing called Clearview, and other apps, it's called Clarify or Definition. DxO's Clearview is absolutely phenomenal. Like anything, it can overdo it, right? We can totally crank this thing and it looks sick. I mean, that isn't what it looked like, everybody, okay? But we can do that. I see a lot of people these days posting images, you know, because we interact in this thing called social media so often, in this case Instagram, and I see some people going, and I have a question coming in. Hello, my name is Dan. How can I lighten pictures I took in RAW? Okay, Dan, I'm not going to lose you here. I'm going to show you in a second, but let me just go down this control panel here. There we go, right? I think that's kind of it. And I'm actually going to jump into Dan's question, how do you lighten pictures I take in RAW? Well, it's pretty simple. There's a lot of tools to do it. You can go in as exposure compensation, right? This works right with the RAW, and there's all these presets that you can do. I'm not a control freak, but I know what I like. So here we go. I'm going to lighten in RAW, and I can go absolutely berserk if I want to. DxO has a densitometer. Boy, if anybody in the film world out there remember densitometers, we used to put a negative or a slide under a scanning machine that would see the density in whites and darks, and lights and darks. I see up here in the RGB channel, when I move over this gentleman's face, those numbers, and then the white areas that are, you know, if you see 255, 255, it's blown out. We're almost there here up in the fluorescent light that's coming down, almost at 255. This incredibly kind gentleman with beautiful skin, you know, he's a little bit darker, of course, but that's totally natural and cool, but that's just too bright for me. So, Dan, you can go like this. We can come in, of course, and do curves, tonal curves. That's a familiar thing, right? Everybody's here. I don't mind curves. Look at this. We're going absolutely berserk if we want. We can go anywhere we want. You can come in and do all the colored channels. I'm not such a doer of all that stuff. I'm going to turn it off. I like curves, but I don't need to do curves. Hold on, where do they have that? Curves, curves, curves. I want to turn it off because I don't want to fill up my control panel with thingies. But I will come in and do exposure. I'm going to bring it in right about here. Let's just say a starting point. The smart light, again, I don't want to over crank it because it's bright enough. I look at my densitometer, maybe a little bit more of clear view. Bring a little more contrast. I may have gone up too much because of Dan's question here. Remember these numbers? See, it's going down to 36. Probably 0, 0, 0 is what it was, right? I'm almost there. I'm going to manually put it in. There we go. That is what it was. And then I'm going to come in and do selective colors, selective tones. We can just highlight up shadows and just bring out the kind shadows in this gentleman. We can bring down the highlights from that fluorescent light. If we want, we can fiddle with black areas. I don't want to go too bright. We're getting pretty close to almost where I'd stop. We can go into, I like things a little bit desaturated sometimes. We can go in, and of course, like in many programs, we can crank the saturation and make it completely hyper crazy looking. Really crazy. Let's go totally psychotic here. Let's go nuts. It didn't look like this. All right. I'm going to slightly desaturate just a little tiny bit. Now, here is where it gets interesting. I'm going to show you another image a little later, the denoising. This is, of course, not one of these latest 50 million bajillion megapixel cameras. I'm going to come in here, and DxO is this amazing, by far. And I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting here talking through DxO. And let me also share that I don't share anything or put my name to anything that I don't believe in. It's just irrelevant to me. But by and far, far and wide, and by and far, even though that's probably not correct English, DxO has the most powerful denoising tool out there. I'm going to show you a frame that is touching in the 10,000 ISO range that'll just absolutely sort of blow the wheels off the bus. They have it as a default as HQ, or high quality fast denoising, but if the latest in version 11 is this prime denoising. So we're going to click on that. It's going to do its magic, and so I'm kind of ready to go here. I mean, I don't know what I really want to do anymore. So compare, that's how it came in, very dark and vignetted. DxO brought out, and this barreling effect, of course, happened because I was probably using a lens that was, kind of wide-angly. That corrected all of that. It corrected the distortion of the lens, and this is really what I saw, and that's what I care about. We can add a little more contrast. I don't know what you guys are seeing on all of your monitors. Again, I do sort of make things a little bit darker. Go to all of my work from National Geographic is now represented through Nat Geo Creative Agency, but a lot of my historic archive is of course still with the 7 Photo Agency, and a lot of that work was also toned on earlier versions of OpticsPro. And so you can see it, or just go online and then take a look at it. It's all there. So that's what it was, that's what it is. So that picture's pretty much done, everybody. I mean, let me show you something that is, again, I love really complex lighting situations. This was also from the malaria story. This gentleman, a very kind man, it was monsoon season, and the streets were flooded in Calcutta, India, and he drove his taxi into this flooded area, not knowing how deep it was. And I'll give you a little background on how I do these stories, how I think about them. What does this have to do with malaria? Well, this gentleman sort of turned on the wrong street, so to speak, got into way deep water. It flooded his car, stopped running. He's kind of out of luck here. But when the water subsides, his taxi is going to become a perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes, spreading malaria in a concrete jungle. And so what does that mean? So I stumbled into this, couldn't believe it. And he's locking up his car and he's going away. It's a relatively high ISO. And this is what it came in as, right? Pink, really dark, and automatically. And Mike, I think you had a question for auto setting. Well, it's picking up the last settings that I had, and it's going pink, correcting the distortion of the of the lens. See how the shape of this beautiful diplomat. These are the diplomats of India, correcting it. Putting it back into perspective, lightening it up. Let's look at what it did here. We can add more of this smart light. We can totally go berserk and lighten it all up. Sorry, don't feel like doing that. We're going to go back into slight. I don't need to have it going berserk on me. We have white balance. Let's see what white balance is doing. Oh, it's as I photographed. And you know what? It is pretty much as I wanted it. I can come in. It's maybe a little too cool for me, but I'll show you because I'm going to add a little bit of the clear view, a little bit of definition here. I'm going to bring this up. Now it's getting a little chunky, right? It's getting like crunch. I don't want to over crunch it, but I want to bring out the detail that's in here, so it darkened it, right? I'm going to turn it on and off. Watch, pink, and it should lighten up again, and pink. I'm going to turn on clear view, and it kind of darkens it because we're adding definition and sharpness in it without over sharpening. And it kind of is darkening. That's okay. Moving back to Dan's question, how do I lighten my raw pictures? This is a raw file, guys. Reveal original image in Finder. I'll show you. I'm showing you my underwear drawer. There it is. Photographed in 2006, September 23rd. Dan, that's the raw file. And again, really dark. That's how I photographed it. This stuff just blows my mind away because today in photography, we can see in light that we never thought we could see it, right? See all that noise? See all that noise in there? I hope you guys can see it. I'm going to zoomy in. See it? Even the banding, can you guys see that? I'm going to lighten this up, so this is not how I would normally do this, so bear with me. I'm doing this for demo purposes only. See all that noise? Now I'm going to come in and turn on the noise reduction, And this is just the high quality quickie. It already corrected a dead pixel. Terrible name. It got rid of that. I even saw that little slider. How cool is that? All this banding is going to pretty much disappear, and now I'm going to really up the game, come in on prime, come in and grab this thing, this spot, and I'm going to crank it up a little bit and watch that nothing turns to plexiglass, or that over oh my goshness that I found in Lightroom. I mean, my goodness, Lightroom just plexiglassed it so quickly. Here we go. It's crunching a 70-some% correction. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to go really haywire. Let's go 100% just because we can. I'm going to hit close and let it do its thing. There's heavy math going on here that I don't even understand or want to understand. Look at that. At 100%, I see detail in the steering wheel strapping that's on this guy's car. No noise whatsoever in this water. But that's pretty much where I'm going to go with it. I don't need to do any more. I don't want to do any more. I'm going to bring down some of the midtones maybe and kind of leave it there. Look at all the rich detail in the seat. And if you like saturation, I'm not a saturation-y person, but we can come into there and we can remove some of the red saturation. This face is a little too red for me. You know, we can go here endlessly, right? But I want to stop it at this point, and here I'll give you the comparison. That's what it was. That's what it is. I'm going to try to find a bird thing for you. Sharpening. Okay, here's one that you guys, I think, are going to be absolutely gobsmacked on. It's not a bird. I'm going to look here. What do I have for birds? Sorry, I don't have any birds. But figure, John, I love you. I don't even know who you are, but I do know who you are now. Walk with me on it, because pretend that these wheat noodles are birds. Okay, so this is DxO is immediately trying to render it from the last settings that we had. This is how it came in. There's the raw. It's automatically doing that, but you know, I don't want it to be this way. It's too bright. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. I'm going to come in and give a little bit of definition or sharpness. You want to know sharpness. Okay. Look at those wheat noodles. Look at the barreling correction, number one. Correcting the barreling, rendering that room perfectly. Look at the vertical lines. Oh, built in, we can do this, but I try to always watch my verticals and horizontals when I'm photographing. I'm going to give a little bit of details in the shadows. I'm going to bring down some of the highlights because I don't like things over contrasty. It has nice warmth in those noodles on the walls. Look at all the details in the wheel. I'm going to zoom in. It's a semi-slow shutter speed, so the bottom of the wheat noodles are moving. The wheel is spinning, correct? Follow me here. And look at how Clearview brought those, even in the act of movement that this kind, beautiful gentleman was doing, veiled behind absolute beauty. I mean, and it's just done. And this is what it came in as, kind of contrasty looking. I guess I had my exposure right. I probably was a little over. And shrink, done. It's done. And I can be a photographer. Again, what we were, come back. What we were, what we are. It's incredible. DxO has these other fantastic tools, plugins or adaptions that you have for black and white. Oh, I don't have those turned on in here. My apologies. If you really want to move some black and white photography here, this is it. I'm really not a black and white photographer. I work in the hyper world of reality. Let's just do this and make it black and white for a second. Oops, I'm just doing it on the red channel. A second. There it is in black and white if you want black and white. But there's a DxO film pack. It is phenomenal. It does a beautiful job. Oh, look at that. Taking out some of the red removes some of the warmth, some of the redness in it, and we'll bring that down. So pretty much this image is good to go. I may want to bring it up a little tinkly bit. Oh, here's a question. Russ, is it possible for John to demonstrate the dust removal tool, please? I don't know if I have... oh, there's some goobers up here. Yep, okay. You got me, Russ. I got some goobers. Sorry, Russ, I'm going to get to your question in a second. I'm going to make it under like that a little bit. It's pretty much ready to go. Let's get a little bit of this clear view in for definition. Oh, it really brought out all those goobers, didn't it? Okay. Yes, I'm showing you my underwear drawer. Didn't clean my sensor in Saudi Arabia. And so for dust, we have it down here. There you are. Dust. Here we go. And it's doing its thing. And I'm going to just come in, and I'm just going to go bing. And I'm just going to go bank, and I'm just going to go bank, and I'm just going to go bank, and bank, and bank. Oh, you know, this goober's on my screen. Sorry, I thought I cleaned my goobers. Bank, bank, and DxO is doing its thing. And let it do its thing. Let it catch up. And there it went. I can still do more, of course. Missed it. So there's the dust remover. It moves incredibly efficiently. It finds all the, the spots around it. There's another goober, another goober. So that's kind of it, Russ. I mean, it moves really, really quickly. I feel like, and I'm going to show you something that I really wouldn't do to this image. I'm probably using a 24 millimeter, but let's say we want to correct the perspective. Right now, my goodness, there is no program on the planet that does this like DxO does. This is now built in to OpticsPro. Let's say, for whatever reason, because these Nabateans 3,000 years ago hand carved these tombs, and yes, I'm kind of close, and it happened really fast. I was waiting in in Madan Saleh in Saudi Arabia for hours, and nobody was around, and then suddenly this family pulled up. Their car is kind of off to the side here. The father or gentleman jumps out of the car, looks inside one frame, and he went out and left. So whatever lens I was using is what I was using. And let's go a preview of this. And there. Now it's corrected. Of course, it's correcting it and removing. It's such a correction, right, that we're losing the crop. I lose my full frame. I'll do it here just for you guys to see. I actually probably corrected it too much, but I lost the top of it. Because I want it to be my natural frame, well, guess what? That isn't what I would normally do. You, of course, could crop this differently. I just undid the crop. It does a natural crop. We could come in and manually crop it, right? You can come in and do like this and do like this. But I'd have to unlock the perspective and make it full, artificial from what it is. Unconstrained. But I wouldn't do this. I see in full frame. But if you want to, if you do architecture, right, you can do this, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just don't do it for this image, at least. And there we go. And that's really kind of how it looked. I can recorrect it again. I think I probably went a little too far with the overstretchiness of it. Apply. Dink. Right, and so we can go back and forth on this. It's not something that I would do for my photography. I'm just showing you this on how it is done, and I'm going to turn that bit off here in a second. But so that's dust, sensor dust remover for all the goobers that are out there. I'm going to show you another one from Saudi Arabia. I photographed with very, very fast glass. This is a 51-2. This is how it came in. Very little distortion because that lens is such an incredible prime lens. But it removed the slight vignetting that the lens naturally does. Very slight correction. I'm going to do the clear view first because I like to bring out the detail, the sharpness. We brought out the details in this wing of an airplane that had crashed near the Red Sea in the desert of Saudi Arabia. It sharpened it beautifully, tack sharp, not over sharpening it. There really is no noise here. I'm probably at like 50 ISO. I would desaturate it a little bit. I don't remember the ground being this this yellowy, and so I would come down and I'd desaturate it a little bit. Where are you, buddy? Oh, we're going to go into the master one, and a little bit of desaturation, a little bit like that. Bink, bink, and I'm done. And I'm going to show you one more, again from National Geographic. If you picked up the magazine in the April issue, this is from the Ghostland stories. This is 8,000 ISO, photographed with one of my favorite lenses. It's not a fast lens. It's the 24-70 f4. It's an image stabilizing lens. Even in this incredibly complex low light, this is how it came in as. Whoopsie, let me get rid of all of these guys so you're not confused and have to see it. These are my auto settings that I start with. Compare, right? Dark. Really didn't look like this. Those apricot trees were lit up. We're at the border here, and that it corrects the distortion, lightens it up. Now I'm going to really blow you guys away on noise. I'm going to make you just go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. It's going to blow your mind away. Look at the noise. Original in high quality mode. It's already corrected. Let's go into prime. Let's go in and choose the spot because that's where our eye naturally goes for noise. Incredible how we're doing this here. I'm going to crank up the luminosity again, or basically crank up the denoising. There will be, again, none of this plasticky look that always happens in Lightroom. Look at that uniformity in the sky. There's details in the leaves. There's details in the ground and the plants. Somebody obviously is smoking a cigarette back here. There's the smoke is coming up. I'm hand-holding this. It just comes together. And maybe I want more detail in those apricot trees. Let's bring that out. Okay, let's just blow our minds away. Here we go. It's there. It's all there. It's there. Look, you just can't believe it's auto-corrected for that 24-70 f4 lens. The distortion, that's what it was. See how the gentleman standing under the tree, he looks kind of smooshied in over here. See, he looks kind of smooshied in, and when I let go, he actually becomes a human again, not smushy, but he got to regular shape. That is, to me, not unethical to do. You are correcting what the lens is taking away from reality. And DxO engineers, I've met a few, I've offered suggestions on how to make this better for us as photographers, and they do it. They've come in and made this guy, actually I remember his name, Vachagan. He is corrected and he's back to being who he is. What he was, kind of smushy, dark, I'm a little underexposed because I'm worried about hand-holding. Done, corrected, apricot trees are right, Vachagan's correct, everybody's correct, and it's done. And guess what? There's no noise. I'm at 8,000 ISO, and I can be a photographer. It's not rocket science. It's not complex. I don't want my life to be complex. There's enough complexities in life. Good God, I'm dealing with, we all have complexities. Why add more? I want to be a human being. I want to live this life to dance and do what I need to do in this time that I'm given, and I want the tools that I use to work to benefit the communication and the purpose that I'm doing with this thing called a camera. So here's one. Oh, here we go. Eric, without Lightroom or Aperture, how are you cataloging your photos? Good question. So I had everything organized in Aperture, bye-bye Aperture, and I had them in projects. Lightroom kind of does it, but it just doesn't do it intuitively, with all due respect to Lightroom. It doesn't do it intuitively, doesn't organize it as well, but what I do is I have everything on folders. We should do this, DeMarcus, again when I'm in studio, where we sort of do like how do we organize our archive and using OpticsPro as our dry darkroom tool. But all of my raw files, my images, my photographs, reside in a folder that is called that assignment. Well, actually, if you really want to know, it's a hierarchy of countries because I work on a global basis. So I'll have Indonesia, for example. This is in Indonesia. I lived in Indonesia for many years. This is from the Volcano God story. And then in the Indonesian folder, I'll have many story folders, in this case, Volcano Gods, and this image from Rinjani on the island of Lombok. it will be in there, and so it's organized, and then I just point OpticsPro to that folder. So pretend that this thing here called OpticsPro DxO demo is the archive, or literally call it just archive, and in there is an Indonesian folder, and in the Indonesian folder is a Volcano Gods folder, and all the work from the Volcano Gods story is in there. I think it's like 20-some thousand images. And this image, this is how we call it at National Geographic. Boy, I'm really showing you everything here. It was story number MM. Why the Geographic does that, I don't know. But it's the 7,409th story that the magazine has done. And it was photographed in 2006 on September 22nd. And this frame here was image number 9,170 of that story. And that's how it's done in catalog. And I point, if you want to know again, Ed, everything is in folders. Here's the structure. So when you're looking into my laptop here, I have other images here, invoicing, all sorts of stuff that has no images in it, a 7-folder. But in this case, I'm pointing it to here, and I can do the same thing. So Ed, follow me here. This would be my, instead of desktop or whatever, it would point to my RAID. It's very simple. Think of your digital images as how you would organize film or pieces of paper or whatever you want to call it in file cabinets. You don't just throw everything into a file folder and don't put tabs on them and don't put labels on the drawers of the filing cabinets. If you don't do that, guess what? You're going to have filing cabinets chock-a-block full of things, and you won't be able to find a bloody thing. Let's do this with love and understanding that if you want to find something, you have to put a little bit of mind effort into it to organize it. And this isn't rocket science. It's that simple. And then you point OpticsPro, one tool that doesn't make things like plexiglass, denoises like no other purpose that you've ever seen, does clarification, definition in the way that no other tool does, and lens corrects your images in the most purest way, and it's one place to work in. And you can print from it, and you can do everything you want from it. You can add it to Aperture. You can add it to Lightroom. You can do whatever you want. Look at this. I can export it to Lightroom. I can send it as an email. I can export to disk. I can go to Twitter, Facebook, all this stuff, and it's all in one place. And I own it. It's not that expensive, and I don't have to pay monthly fees for it. And it exists. I can use it on all my machines, and I can dance with it. I can be a photographer. And I don't have to be a technician. Send me some questions. Come on. Steve, do you find that since all adjustments are made globally, you miss local adjustments? You point, etc. No, because if I have to do some burning and dodging, I'll bring it in. Well, I used to bring it into Aperture, but I'll bring it into Lightroom. And I'll bring it into Photoshop. Watch. Okay, here we go. Steve, here we go. I'm going to go full screen mode. You could say in RAW, right? That's the RAW. Compare is my little preset already correcting the flaws of the lens, the 16 to 20, correcting it. And you could say that, geez, I don't have a lot of detail in the sky up there, right? I'm going to burn it in. I want a local adjustment, and I want to burn it in. I don't have to waste my time with that in OpticsPro. Watch. I'm going to come in and clear view. Again, it's not like clarify. That's this crunchy thing that crunches everything. It's not like definition that kind of crunchies it too. Yeah, I can crunchy it and make it look apocalyptic. You want to go apocalyptic? That's the end of the world, right? And also totally saturated. There, I don't know if you guys can see this or what monitors that you're on. But I'm going to bring this in and look at the cloud definition that's there. I could come in and arc weld the sky in if I wanted to. But that isn't what it looked like, right? And if you want to arc weld the sky in so it looks like Armageddon's coming and the end of the world is about to happen, you can do that. You can arc weld this in, but it didn't look like that. There were faint clouds. Look at the densitometer on top, RGB. See it up here? Watch those numbers. Nothing is 255. It was late in the afternoon, the misty color in those clouds, and we brought that out. Look at them. They're not there. They're there. And if I want to, I can even bring in more details in the sky. See, Steve? I just want to show you what it came in as, kind of listless, kind of yucky-linkily, no detail in the sky. To my dear friend Steve, who was asking about local adjustments, bink, bonk, bink, done, and I can be a photographer. Dana, I have a DxO camera that attaches to an iPhone. Have you ever used it? By golly, I sure have. I use it often. It's an amazing, serious camera. It's such a powerful camera, and it's so inconspicuous. It's in your pocket. It's not on your shoulder. It's really a monumental shift in photography. So use the one. It's a beautiful camera, powerful camera. Use your iPhone. Use a Canon, Nikon. I want to know what you make on it. I want you to inspire me. I want you to help change the world. I want you to blow our minds away. So I hope this was interesting. I want to humanize photography. I want to talk about what we can do in photography. I want to talk about what we can love and achieve with this medium of photography. And I want to use tools that enable me to be a photographer, be a human. I hope this was interesting. Thank you so much. Message DxO if you got any questions. They're super great at support. They're fellow human beings out to help us be photographers.